All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is Ross Vertel, faithful reader on the forums, and I'm here with a special guest today. Anything you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello, I am Nathan Gooey Chewy Miracle, and I am here to talk about a couple of decks that I've played recently. One at Masters and once at a local event that a deck that is very special to me. So I wanted to share it today too.
Yeah. Which one do you want to go through first? Masters or the local?
Well, I think most people came here for the Masters, so let's talk about that one first.
Okay, so I'm bringing it up right now. Um, Achy Breaky Heart,
Yes,
Vidian deck.
I do like to name all of my songs, or excuse me, all of my decks after songs. So I figured "Achy Breaky Heart" makes sense because my goal is to break your heart, literally by ripping it out of your chest and then using it to make organs for myself.
Cool. And this was your first experience with Vidians?
First tournament experience, yes, and I tested this deck out a few times. Didn't make a whole lot of changes to it. Added a couple of cards. It is much larger than my normal deck size. I usually like to go no higher than 50 cards in the draw deck, and you can see here I had 62. Um, so I wanted to trim it down a little bit, but then couldn't decide what to cut out because I just liked every card.
Yeah. So what leads you towards this specific deck? So we've seen the Vidian Solver, the Vidian 50-point missions, but led you towards this more battle build.
Yeah. So one thing I like about Vidians to start with is there's a bunch of ways to go with them. We had three different Vidian decks in the tournament, and all three of them went different ways. One of them did 50-point missions with the think tank. One of them did the Lados, where you get the extra counters on your first turn, and I did neither of those. So I had my own one to do. And the thing that really drew me to it was uh, the particular mission, the Mokra controlled planet exploit strife. There is a particular personnel who has all four of those skills, and also gets bonuses for doing capture stuff. Um, so this is a 25-point mission, and I complete it for usually 35 points, despite the fact that I only need strength greater than 30. Most of the time, I complete it with a captive in my brig and an equipment in my discard pile. I don't worry so much about the staff ship at my opponent's mission because I'm actually trying to win the game faster than I can really have two staffed ships out. So that
Right.
mission in particular is what drew me to this.
Okay. And then who was the personnel offhand?
I am
Okay.
terrible with Vidian names.
Understandable.
It, it it's just horrible. Um,
Okay.
trying to remember all of their names. It is a unique personnel. It is Sethis, the punctilious warden. Yeah, and you can see I've got two of him in here because he is just that good at that mission. He has all of the skills for it: anthropology, geology, security, and treachery. Plus, if I go beat you up, I get to capture an additional personnel, which that part never actually came up. But the fact that he's got all the skills and 7 strength to boot, all of my missions required strength. Um, that was kind of the goal, was to capture people and do strength missions.
Okay. So the deck pretty much performed as you'd expect.
Honestly, the deck is better than I played it. I went 2-2, and one of the games I have regrets. I could have, I'm not saying necessarily that I would have won, but I could have done things to make the game not go the way it did. And then one of the other game that I lost was just a wacky game where I did a great job of making sure my opponent couldn't win, and then proceeded to um, stink up the joint in my own attempts, as his dilemmas just stop after stop after stop. Uh,
Yeah, so yeah, let's go through the games. So, two of your opponents were Brian Sykes and Michael Van Bremen. I've
Mhm.
had interviews with both of them. If everything goes right, they've shown up prior to this one. So, which game would you want to go through first, Brian's or Michael's?
Let's go through Michael since I played him first.
Okay.
Um, and he was playing a horrible, horrible deck where he plans to face no dilemmas whatsoever. I did get to draw a dilemma against him, and that was an accomplishment, apparently, because I don't know that many other people got to draw dilemmas against him. The way his deck worked is he would isolate a personnel using Hippocratic Oath, and then he would shoot them with the Q gun, which allows him to put 3 dilemmas underneath one of his missions. And also, he would play Jajuk to get another dilemma underneath one of his missions. And then he would do 2 missions facing no dilemmas to win the game. I responded to that poorly. I should have realized, and I did realize pretty quickly that what was going on is he's isolating a personnel with Hippocratic Oath. I should have just not attempted with the medical skills and said, "That's great. You get to stop me with that dilemma, but you don't get to shoot me because I'm not going to give you somebody to shoot at." Um, but I didn't. Instead, I ended up sending the same guy over to his mission 3 times. Like I went and got him and brought him back, and he got Hippocratic Oath again. It was a non-unique person, but it was the same copy of that non-unique personnel all 3 times. Poor guy got shot at so much. But of course, they're not killing him. So he's just sitting there like, I surrender. So I could have done better by not attempting with exobiology or medical and just taking the all stop. I still overcome a dilemma. Don't let you shoot my guy. And then don't go do planet missions until I'm ready to have a mega team there. Like, do you really want to come risk losing the game with the gun? So I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I would have won if I had altered my strategy, but I am saying that by not altering my strategy, I guaranteed my loss.
Yeah, I'm looking through these dilemmas. I'm not really seeing what you could have done with one of them. Maybe well, no, not secret
Well,
identity.
actually, he MVB was scared when I got to draw that dilemma because there are a couple dilemmas in here that I would have been able to really hammer him with, and they cost 8. Sylvia and Whispers in the Dark, because he was attempting a planet mission. Um, I had 8 events in my core.
Uh,
So if I had drawn one of those, I could have hit him with that, and that would have been bad for him. But instead, I drew organ harvesting. It's like, okay, fine, here you go. And it got overcome because I had 0 to spend because he also attempted with um, Vic Fontaine and made it to where I drew 1 and could spend 0. But if I had gotten Sylvia or if I had gotten Whispers in the Dark, that still would have been bad news for him.
yeah. And then what happened with your game against Brian?
That one was such a weird game. So he went out and attempted fairly early, and I hammered him. I got him with Ghost of Reality, which I do think is too good. It does need to be curtailed a bit. Um, he lost some people to that. I think I hit him with another dilemma that he lost some people to. And then I went over with the Solus and shot him up and captured more people. He ended up with 0 personnel in play, not counting the ones that were in my brig. So that seemed like bad times for him. Unfortunately, I completed a mission, and the way Vidians work, they lose a lot of their bonuses once you've completed a mission, and I just could not get another mission going. And he eventually rebuilt and built up to the point where he had enough personnel to just go do missions where I was unable to stop him long enough, and he completed a couple missions, and he got the modified win. If he had not gotten the modified win there, he probably would have gotten the full win on the on. I would have gotten a turn. I probably would have completed a mission, but then he probably would have gotten a full win on the subsequent turn. Um, it's just because the Vidians lose so much once you've completed that first mission, and I hadn't really built towards completing the second and the third.
Yeah, but one of the advanced strategies that I do not recommend, but do try to throw out there every now and then, is try and purposefully not solve that first mission. Just try to do the crop dusting and
Yeah.
hope your opponent doesn't catch on.
Well, and I made the mistake of going out of my way to complete that first mission because I played Hanada to gain a skill that I didn't already have to complete that first mission. Like I could have just said, nope, I fail, but I went out of my way to cheat into getting what I needed to complete that mission. And then all of a sudden I'm no good at the rest of the missions.
Yeah.
So Brian started off that game, when I got him down to 0 personnel and I completed the first mission, he's like, Vidians, they're so powerful. I hate them. They shouldn't be this powerful. And then by the end, he was like, yeah, maybe they're not as powerful as I thought they were because they start off really strong and it feels very frustrating that your opponent gets to complete this mission really quickly and they jump
Yeah.
out to this lead. But then, your opponent catches up if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
But
And
it
then
was definitely a weird game to get out to that much of a head start and then just fall flat on my face halfway through the game.
and then your other two games were against Mikey Camp Jr., he was playing Bajorans, and Mike Gillespie, who is playing TOS. How did those go?
So TOS is a bit of mislabeling for Mike Gillespie there. He was primarily playing non-align.
Oh.
His deck is labeled as TOS because he was playing the TOS Earth, and he had the Thief version of James T. Kirk. But he was primarily playing Thieves, and he was doing Varia. And I was able to keep him to low enough numbers of personnel that it wasn't realistic for him to do the dual attempt thing. So he did end up completing one of the missions, but it was late in the game, and he didn't really have a chance to catch up at that point. Mikey rode down with us, so first round got to play somebody who rode in the car with me, but such is life. He was playing Bajorans. I really struggle against Bajoran micro teaming. Just in general, my own mental block, I struggle against them. They're probably my least favorite affiliation to play against. But in this case, it worked really well because he didn't have a lot of capture defense. So once I captured some of his big high integrity people, his deck couldn't quite recover. So he got to complete a mission, but it ended up not being that close of a game, really.
Cool. So yeah, let's take a look at this deck in action. Unless there's anything else from the games you wanna
Go right ahead.
All right. Let me.
Yeah. So the priority number one when playing this deck was to get the Solus out. I definitely preferred having the Solus over the other ships because if I can go take dilemmas back from you, that's a great thing. So if I was in a position to download a ship, Solus is the ship that I would go get. I was also trying to get 8 cards in my core quite quickly so that I could get those 8 cost dilemmas down to cost 0. And I would try to extend out the cost reduction from the headquarters as much as possible. So like with this starting hand, I would play one of the people and then I'd start playing the events and drawing cards so that next turn I only have 1 personnel in play and I can play somebody else at cost -2. So I'd probably be playing the big guy there, second from the left. Yeah,
Nadir? Okay.
Nadirum. So now I know that he has a when you play effect that I would just be ignoring in this case. I'm okay with that. But then I'd start playing these events, drawing cards from there.
Okay. So, right, the events. So the personnel is free. The events would take us up to 3, and then
Three,
you would just
draw for 4, play that. Because now I'm threatening to come over to you. And then I'd go ahead and play the christening and download the Solus.
okay.
So at this point, we've spent 3 on the events, 4 on the events now. 5, 6. So
And
we've spent 6 counters so far.
right.
I would just draw for the last one.
And
And
then
next
yeah.
turn, I'd play one of the personnel and the ship.
So we're probably playing one of the 1 class personnel so that we can get the
Yeah.
ship.
So we can get the ship out.
And then turn after that, we'd get face off and get more.
Face off and more people.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And that's I mean that's how you jump off. Once you have the Solus and enough people, then you start going to attempt your first mission, which for me tended to be the system J25 or the Alderar system battle reconnaissance, depending on what I happen to draw into skill wise. But the deck can go either way on that. So
Okay. So yeah, so you would be willing to play this again, I take it.
I would definitely be willing to play this again. I would probably do some trimming. Um, maybe take out one of the psychological pressures. They didn't turn out to be great. I was hoping to make my opponent discard a bunch of cards, but it doesn't really do that now, since it only makes them discard 1 card per copy per dilemma. Not sure what else I'd take out though. I'd really have to give it a close look, but I'd be willing to play a similar deck again.
Okay. All right. And then would you be willing to do other types of the index? Or just
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things about Vidians is even though they really only have 1 set plus the doctor, there's at least 3 ways to play them. And we saw 3 ways to play them in this tournament. Which is funny. I brought Vidians in part because I thought we weren't going to see a bunch of Vidians. And then there ended up being 2 other Vidian decks. I didn't play against any of them, but was still neat to see an affiliation that young being taken so many different directions.
cool. All right, so yeah, that'll wrap up our talk about the Masters event. If you want to jump off now, understandable for those watching. The Masters deck and the deck from the tournament yesterday are down below in the description.
And
So
to be clear, I did play in the 1E event, but I stole somebody else's deck, didn't really know how it worked, and lost all my games. So we're skipping that.
yeah. Um, so yeah, let's talk about this Galaxy song. What was your inspiration for this deck?
Yeah, so I realized that I could build a deck where I have no headquarters. I'm not using Caretaker's Array. I'm not using Prevent Historical Disruption. I'm not using City Alpha 5. I have none of the traditional places to play personnel. And yet, I could still play the game. So I thought maybe there's a hidden achievement for this because it's such a wacky thing. Turns out there's not. So sorry. But I did get the Think Tank Player achievement. This deck, as I said, doesn't use any of the traditional places to play cards. I do use Nimbus 3 to get that trio of personnel. And then I use 50-point missions with the think tank ship to get that into play. And then I can play think tank personnel directly to that ship. And then I just go do 50-point missions. It was a lot of fun watching opponents try to figure out what in the world I'm doing. Just because, like, you sit down, it's like you will never guess the affiliation I'm playing. Like, look at the missions, like, okay, yeah, no, I still have no clue what you're doing here. And it really confused my opponents in terms of what skills I had and that sort of thing, because they've got a very eclectic mix of skills. Really just threw my opponent off. All three of my opponents off. Originally, I was thinking of going for an achievement where all your personnel have cunning greater than 7. I can't remember if it's 7 or 6, where all of your personnel have high cunning. I did not get that achievement because 3 of the personnel in this deck are cutting 0, 0, and 2.
Yeah.
So that disqualified me from the achievement. But I felt like I could not realistically do just the think tank people. I needed a little bit more support. I still only have 9 personnel that I can have in play at a time.
Very, very Lord of the Rings of you.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So which one's Frodo? I think Kuros. Because he's the main guy. I need him to complete these missions. I needed specific personnel to complete specific missions. So I was very afraid that somebody was going to be captured. And when you're playing with no headquarters and no like pseudo headquarters, I had to get creative about what I could include, because you can't play equipment. And that meant I could not have any ETUs to rescue any people. So I had to rely on 3 escapes. Also, rescue prisoners, not an option, because you know what you do with those? You put them at your headquarters. That I don't have. So if people got captured, that would just be bad. So escape, more important for preventing capture than kills. At one point, against Mikey, the same guy I played first in Masters, he used Tragic Turn, consumed an all-consuming evil, looked at my missions and saw that 3 of them required treachery and said, I'm going to name treachery. But Finum, who is the think tank personnel who can exclude somebody from random selections, had excluded Kuros. No one else in the deck has treachery. So I just held up my hands and said, all right, here's all the people I have with treachery who can be randomly selected by all-consuming evil. It's like, what are you talking about? How do you have no treachery? I'm like, I didn't say I have no treachery. I said I have nobody who can be randomly selected by that dilemma.
Yeah. I'm looking at this. So it seemed like you mainly be vulnerable because obviously because you only have 1 ship and someone who's
and no
good at
way to
skill
repair it.
checking. Yeah.
I could not find a way to repair it.
And isn't there a card that the card that turns off the game text of a ship? If you don't get the personnel out, that would leave you
A few minor difficulties was a high priority, tacking into the wind, destroy. I did not happen to see it, so thank goodness I didn't have to deal with that. But yes, I'm running 3 tacking into the winds, because if I happen to accidentally discard all 3 copies of a personnel, or you play something like a few minor difficulties, that can absolutely crush me.
so
Now, well-prepared defenses, I felt confident that I would have higher point totals than my opponent,
yeah.
considering my missions in total were with 240 points.
Yeah. So this deck pretty much did what you thought it was. You wouldn't make any changes to it at another event.
I would not play this game at another event. This deck works best if your opponent has no idea it's coming and doesn't really know what it does. The moment your opponent figures out you only have 1 guy who has navigation in there, You need him to complete that mission. Oh, you only have one guy who has treachery. You need him to complete that mission. It's really easy to stop if you know what you're doing. Fortunately, my opponents did not know what the think tank personnel could do. But 5 of them can complete 50-point missions.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
see,
we
I would,
probably don't need to go through this, but this is just a sample hand. You hope that you get the think tank ship in the opening hand.
yes.
You've got cord, and then just
Well,
try and.
I cannot play Cord from hand. To get them into play, I have to download them to Nimbus 3.
Oh,
So
okay.
I actually don't want to have Cord in my hand. With this hand, I would absolutely play the think tank ship number 1. I would play it to nope. Sorry, it's hard for me to read the Hunt for DNA program. The one on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, Vilmore too. Sorry, I'm old. I
Yeah.
remember when they weren't named after their locations. It's much
Right.
better that they're named after the locations, because we could make another Vilmore 2 that does something else. But yes, the reason I would play it there is I cannot play it Nimbus 3. But once I have enough personnel in play, I would move from there to Nimbus 3, pick up my people, and then move to Pegasus Search.
Okay.
All in one turn. Once I complete Pegasus Search, I just need to go to a planet. Usually it's Hunt for DNA program. And that's it, to just complete that mission for the rest of the game. Now, Mikey did actually throw me off because he hit me with the Clown Go Away and Tragic Turn at the DNA program. So I skipped over to Harness Omega Particle, where he hit me with another Tragic Turn. So I skipped over to Shakari. So I gave up on 2 different planet missions on that. But then he was out of Tragic Turns because he had the other one on Pegasus Search. So I'm like, well, I know you're out of Tragic Turns now. All your all-consuming evils are already under my missions. So I feel confident that I can go. Like, I'm better off going to this mission that doesn't have those on there than doing the missions that have 1 or 2 dilemmas underneath them and have horrible things on them. All right. So turn 2 here, I would probably go ahead and play Kuros. I would download either St. John Talbot or Cord. And the reason I would go ahead and get one of them is so that I don't accidentally draw the second copy, because then I can't get them anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I'd go ahead and grab Cord, put him on Nimbus 3, and then I would draw a card. Of course.
Yeah.
So I'd probably on turn 2 download the other 2 so I don't risk getting those, and then draw a card. The hard part here is that I need 3 of the non-aligned think tank people, because 7 of 9 has a staff icon and not a gold star. She doesn't actually help me staff the ship. So from here, the goal would be to draw into 2 more of the original think tanks. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
But also at this point, I'd start overdrawing and discarding the extra copies of personnel that I have.
Cool.
Highly recommend trying that deck out once when your play group least expects it, and then hide it away and bring it out again in like 2 or 3 years when everybody's forgotten.
Cool. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think the only other thing I have to say is, if you ever get a chance to come to the Mark Phillips events, They are great. Mike Gillespie does a wonderful job hosting, despite the run-in that we had with the store that closed the week before the event. So we had to go to an alternate location, but Mike Gillespie was good enough to secure the hotel conference room for us. So he was great about getting us a backup place to play. He's great with prize support. This hat came from there. This shirt with the KCA logo on it came from there. And I left the deck in my car, but the sleeves that I played yesterday are special Mark Phillips sleeves from the past 2 years. I did the draw deck in one of them and the Dilemma Pile in the other. So great prize support, great atmosphere. We always have a great time there. And we always do a Chula draft where everybody gets a starter deck, and then we pass around this box of dilemmas. You draw 3 dilemmas, and you pick 2 of them to keep and put 1 back. And we do that 10 times. So you have a 20-card dilemma pile. And then we do it again after each round, adding 2 more cards, and you can adjust your dilemma pile from there. That is always an incredibly fun event to go to. If you get the chance, come out and play with us next year. It's always close to the end of February, beginning of March.
Well, yeah, thanks for letting us know. Also, thanks for taking the time to sit down with this interview. Thank you very much for everyone listening. This is the final interview that I have, unless 30 people call me and suddenly have availability.